Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 46. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented and continues to subscribe to the show, listen, and give us feedback. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. From sandbags, training gear, and supplements to lifting straps, knee sleeves, and more, Cerberus Strength provides the highest quality strength products on the market, designed and manufactured to help you defeat, destroy, and devour your competition. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to use promo code STRENGTH_GAME at checkout to receive 10% off your next order at CerberusStrength.com. And in this week's episode, I am joined by a good friend of mine and Philly native, Coach Sam Whitney. Whitney is the athletic operations coordinator and strength conditioning coach at the Agnes Irwin School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Prior to his current position, Whitney spent over 9 years, first as an assistant coach before being promoted to associate head strength conditioning coach for Olympic sports at Temple University, where he oversaw training for 15 varsity sports. He served as the head strength conditioning coach at the Polytechnic Institute of New York University, as well as both assistant and volunteer coaching roles at Villanova University before arriving at Temple. Whitney is a published author in the Journal of Strength Conditioning Research and is the owner of We Train Clan, which provides elite level performance training for individuals. Additionally, he's been an adjunct instructor at Temple's College of Public Health Department, as well as the creator of the Philly Area Strength Conditioning Association, a community organization designed to foster relationships and develop knowledge specific to the profession of strength conditioning in and around the Philadelphia area. Sam himself is also a competitive powerlifter. He's been competing since 2013 in multiple weight classes in the USAPL and IPF, with personal bests of a 518 squat, a 352 bench, and a 611 deadlift. I'm excited to have him on the show today. We got a lot to talk about. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Sam Whitney. What's going on, everybody? Today I am joined by a good friend of mine, Philly native, and forever I seem like being in the Philly area, Sam Whitney. What's going on, man?
How you doing? Nice to be here.
Hey man, it's good to finally catch up again now that now I'm gonna have to make a visit back since I'm way on the East Coast nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. Out of Cali.
Yeah, out of there for a good bit. So maybe back to visit, but that's about my extent of going back. So hey, let's hop right into it. I know you got a lot of things, a lot of coals in the fire right now. There's a lot of different things that you've got going on. But really want to start kind of from the beginning. What really got you involved in the strength game, competing in powerlifting, like all the sports that you played growing up that really kind of fueled your passion to be a coach and be a competitor?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question. Multiple questions there. I think I've got a few answers for that. I really got into strength training, I would say, in middle school, 7th, 8th grade. My football coach was my wrestling coach. I distinctly remember going to school during winter break and shoveling off the track, shoveling the snow, running laps. We were, in the wrestling room, making the walls, the condensation, just rain in there, doing push-ups with decks of cards and stuff like that in the hallways of the school. And I just thought it was so cool to be there when no one else was there and to be working so hard. So that's really what got me into strength training or strength and conditioning, I guess you could say. From there is doing it for those high school, middle school sports. I moved to a smaller school when I was in 10th grade, which I feel like drastically changed my high school sports career. We weren't very good at any sports, to be frank. That kind of pushed me away from continuing to wrestle or continuing to do track. I still loved football and wanted to play in college, which I never did. That's a question I get all the time. But I play football in the fall, and I would just train year round to play football. And I just started to love the training portion of it and being responsible for myself more so than a team sport. So that really became my main focus. Living in Pennsylvania, I wanted to go to a state school. I wanted to stay kind of close to home. I wanted to be in a big city. I wanted to go to a Division I school. So again, I got recruited D2, D3. It was D1 or bust for me. So I decided to go to Temple, not play football, be a kinesiology major. I didn't even know that strength conditioning was a career option at that point. So I wanted to be an athletic trainer. But after one semester, intro to kinesiology classes, and we're watching some films of sports injuries. And I don't know, there was a soccer play, slide tackle, and somebody's just tibia just sticking out of the front of their leg. I was like, I went to my advisor. This is not for me. I got to figure something else out. And he said, well, you consider strength and conditioning, or like, I don't know what is that? Well, you like to work out, don't you? And I said, yeah. Well, he's like, well, strength and conditioning, go talk to the guys, downstairs or with the football team. And so that's what opened my eyes to strength conditioning. And that's how I got started in that aspect.
That's awesome. That's exactly how mine, I think, started for the most part. You made it a lot longer than me in one semester. I know I shadowed at our community college, which was like right down the road, at Anne Arundel. And I thought it was cool just kind of being around the team and everything, but I had no idea that strength conditioning was a thing. And I made it like a day. I made it like a 1 day, 1 week. And they told me it was going to take 6 years. And I was like, I am done. And I don't like watching those injuries happen.
No, it's just not for me. It's never been my thing. And I was actually reflecting with somebody the other day, being now that, I'm at a high school now, and I know we'll touch on that later, but at my high school, we didn't have athletic trainers, and my coaches taped my ankles for football games, and there was an ambulance, there was an EMS at the field. So you were either okay and going home with your parents, or you were going in an ambulance to the hospital. Those were your two options. There wasn't any sideline care. So athletic training was the closest thing. I didn't even experience that in high school. So that was the only thing that I knew at that point. I had spoken to some athletic trainers and like the minor league, like baseball system and things like that. So like, I thought that was the deal.
Man, no gray area. That's old school right there.
Yeah.
Hey, I like what you said though, too, because like realizing that in high school, that being responsible for yourself and being responsible for your own training, I think that's why a lot of people kind of turn to strength sports. I mean, most strength coaches do that too, just because they want to be competitive. And I think a lot of strength coaches realize that our work ethic is a lot better than our talent. I can speak for myself on that. That's a lot better. I was not going to play D1 either. So I wanted to stay involved. So you did the same thing yourself. What actually got you really interested and involved in powerlifting? Because you've been doing that since what, 2013?
Yeah, I would say 2013 was probably my first meet. And for me, I think that was a big layoff for me to do anything competitive. That was probably the first competitive thing I'd done in quite a number of years. And it's a funny thing what got me into powerlifting, because one of my friends had signed up for the Virginia State, like USAPL meet or something like that. And he said he was going down there. would I jump into it with him? So it's very little training, never did a powerlifting meet before, not really, a cursory understanding of the sport. Like everyone says they power lift. You either bodybuild or you power lift, right? And it's like, no, you don't unless you actually compete. So that's pretty much where I was with powerlifting. He ended up getting injured, but we still went down there together and I competed, and, I never looked back. I mean, I wouldn't say that I compete regularly or that I'm competitive in a lot of ways, but it was always, from that point forward, it was always something that I had to train for, that kept me motivated, and kept me in the game. And it's not the only thing that I do. I kind of bounce around and try some different things to be competitive, but powerlifting has been a pretty big staple since about that time.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that kind of coincides with a lot of what you were doing, like really kind of dipping your toe into the water with strength conditioning. And you were able to kind of do that back and forth. And I know from some of the people that have worked at like your biggest stop at Temple, a lot of other coaches that ended up coming through the ranks kind of got that bug too and found something competitive. Like, what do you think it is about like a head coach or like a staff that brings other coaches in that like wants to produce more competitive, like outgoing people that want to stay involved in strength sports? Because for the longest time, every time I've talked to you guys, like, and I talked to Inman or I talked to Tifi at Temple, everybody is like, at some point in time, one coach is preparing for something, and everybody's either in their corner helping them or kind of coinciding and training themselves. What do you think like it is about that, you guys all together as a staff doing something?
Well, I think part of it obviously is the individuals and the type of individuals that I know that I look for and Tim looks for when he's hiring people. It's just the type of individual that seeks out this profession, I think, to begin with. I mean, there's that competitive, that type A personality there. But I also think part of it too is I've definitely pushed a few people in that direction. And that's because of the joy that I've gotten out of powerlifting. And once you do understand the sport and you become a part of it, there's a small clique of, drama and, Instagram famous people, but the majority of people you run into are super supportive. And that just was always my biggest takeaway. My first meet where, I'd never even used chalk. I never had a gym with chalk in it. So, I saw people like actually putting baby powder on their legs for deadlift, and I thought it was chalk. So I'm here like chalking up my legs, and people are like, no, they're helping me out. I ran into one of the judges in the bathroom, and he's like coaching me up. This is why I gave you the red on this, And I was like, man, everyone's just trying to help each other out, and it's so awesome. So kind of going back to what I said, I was like, you're not really a power lifter until you compete, or you're not really a bodybuilder until you compete. You're not really a runner until you run a race. All of those things I think are true. And I push people towards powerlifting because that's where I find my joy. And I just think that until you experience it, and with the clients that I coach too, it's your first powerlifting meet. Let's go in. We're not trying to set the world on fire. It's so hard to get people to understand, like, let's just go 9 for 9. Let's figure it out. And let's just enjoy the experience. Not trying to cut crazy weight. We're not trying to win this thing. You never know who's going to show up on meet day, who might be, nationally ranked, regionally ranked. Like, you don't know who your competition is. Therefore, your competition is you. Like, you can only do as the best you can on that day. You're not going to magically pull a 40-pound PR out and beat somebody. So it truly is like you're the only competition. And I think the experiences I've gained from that, I'm always trying to push people into saying, no, I really think you should just try it just once, And then we had the fortune of hosting several USAPL meets at Temple. So that was an easy spot for me to just kind of push people, hey, try this out. jump in this meet. I'll help you. I'll take you through it. And I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, that's awesome. I love that. That definitely answers the question. It's cool to see that as a staff and see how, yeah, your passion could drive someone else's going forward, and the joy you get from it, and like the experience and everything that comes along with that, you're able to pass it on to someone else, and maybe they find a different passion project or they find a different sport, but at least they gave it a go with it. And like, I love what you talk about, because I know you work with some clients with your own business as well. We train clan, and a lot of those individuals end up being like powerlifters or involved in strength sports in some capacity. So coming from all the experience you have and all the background you have of competing and handling people and coaching, like in the high school setting, in the collegiate setting, you understand what it takes to actually put someone on the platform in the right frame of mind and set those goals, not just to go out and win, but to go out and go 9 for 9 on one day, like compete against yourself, set a different PR for yourself, not even worry about the rest of the competitors. And that's an ego thing that a lot of people don't understand going in their first meet, thinking that they're just going to run away with a win.
yeah, I think it, to go a little bit further too, I think it ties in too with my coaching philosophy, in the fact that my number one rule is to never program anything for my athletes that I haven't at least gone through myself. So when we get interns or graduate externs, at Temple, that would be the number one rule. Like you've got to go through these training programs. I love that you're competing for something, but you've got to do like the volleyball lift for 8 weeks, and you've got to run it with them. And you have to understand that this is what our tempo, this is what our expectation, this is how it feels to go through what they're doing, rather than just programming things that you've read in a book or copy and pasting somebody's training program and applying it to your athletes. Really experiencing it, knowing it, understanding it. I think time under the bar is always going to be the greatest teacher, more so than any textbook can ever conceptualize what we're actually talking about in a collegiate or a high school setting, or even on a personal training level.
Right. No, that's huge. That's something that I've taken away from all the spots, and every time I bring in interns, that's the biggest thing that I really want. And anybody can sit down and read the book. And I'll tell you exactly what is, we know what's more applicable in college strength conditioning. Like if you go through the whole textbook, what really is usable. You still have to have the knowledge for some of it, but practically what is usable. And one of the most practical things is just knowing what that feels like, knowing what those exercises look like, knowing and having that experience in your back pocket. And if you're not doing what the athletes are doing or have a good understanding where you can reference it, then you're in deep water without being able to swim at that point.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing I've learned in my 12 or so years of strength conditioning is that every situation is different. So it's great to follow along with people and to read the text and to recognize people that are doing great things in the industry, at other universities or at the high school level or on the platform for powerlifting. But to be a truly great coach, you need to be able to analyze your situation, your athletes, your time, your surroundings, all the resources that you have available to you, and then make the appropriate decision for you and for your athletes. So I think that kind of ties in with, doing the stuff yourself and experiencing it the way that your clients or your athletes are experiencing it.
Right. Yeah. I know you're stepping into a new role right now. So kind of talking about like every situation being different, just kind of in general, since you were at Temple for so long, and your roles like were doubled, you kept changing, you kept elevating yourself within that whole career there. Kind of in general, when you're looking at stepping into a new role, like from your time, not even now, What are you looking to really try to accomplish in those first month or two, especially if it's a change like you went from Villanova, you went to a smaller division school, you went to Temple Division I into high school. Like even if that stuff is similar, what are you really trying to accomplish in those first few weeks starting over?
I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but I think within the first few weeks, it's a big time period for us to start to reestablish or to establish some sort of culture. And then again, everyone says that developing relationships, but that's really the focus that I've had for my entire career. I don't want to take credit for it, obviously, but I think it's a relatively new thing where everyone's talking about how important relationships are. Where if you think about strength conditioning in the past, the reputation is, you're just the weight room guy and you're down there barking orders and everyone's lifting heavy weights and it's all it is strength, right? There's no conditioning. There's certainly no sports performance. I've always kind of taken that holistic approach. Again, I'm not patting myself on the back. That's just who I am as a coach. That's how I developed. And I don't even have an answer for why that is, but I take into account the entire individual, their wants, their needs, their likes, their desires. Being at the Division I level, everyone wants to be there. All your athletes want to be there. They want to train hard. No, they don't. Your full scholarship athletes are there because they're on full scholarship. They're there to play their sport. They're there to get their education. They're certainly not there to hang out in the weight room with you or to run sprints. So getting to know them as people, understanding where they come from. For me now in my current role, moving into the independent school system, it's not the high school that I went to. And it's not similar to any of my experiences at the collegiate level. So figuring out who these kids, who these athletes are and what makes them tick and understanding that they put a huge emphasis on strength and conditioning, but maybe for the wrong reasons. And they've got a lot of things going on. Whether they're playing for their school team, they're playing for their club teams. They all have their own personal trainers or skills coach, and then they're coming to see me. So I gotta have to check my ego and put some of my stuff aside sometimes to try and figure out what's actually best for them in this scenario. Because, coming from collegiate level, I know the practice schedule, I know their game schedule, I know their class schedule. I can pretty much say, this is what their day looks like. The kids that I'm dealing with now, they're going to practice from 3 to 6. They may or may not have a game. We're going to play twice a week in most of our sports. And then I have no idea what they're doing on the weekends or what they're doing after 6 p.m., who they're interacting with, who else is coaching them up. So I've got to even sharpen my focus even more to be in tune with what they've got going on, mentally, physically, where their stressors are, and understanding them even more. So to tie that all in, getting to know them, developing the culture, setting standards, and having that relationship with them so that we can talk and we can have those conversations. They can be honest with me, and not just kind of try and beat around the bush. They can be honest with me about things. I can make sure that we're working together to reach whatever their goal is.
No, that's a great way to put it. And even though those things are cliche, it really does come down to those things. And being in your current situation and not having all the information that you normally can have at a college setting where I think the rules that bind us from NCAA care hours and just how often you're seeing the different members of the support staff and coaching staff, that information is usually pretty readable, or you can get it to some degree and understand what they're doing because they have to go to class. They might live in the dorms. They live close enough by, like everything's a central hub. You don't really, for the most part, deal with parents. So you're dealing with young adults directly. So you could kind of control a lot of things. I mean, that's wild to try to still take a holistic approach and give them what's most optimal for them, And without having a relationship with them, that definitely crumbles right away. You have to have that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's just it's a completely different layer, I think, adding in some of the, I had what I felt was a realistic idea of how I wanted things to go. And I think we can continue to work towards that direction. But I've also had a lot of reality checks along the way with how things operate at that level. And all the things that I thought were chaotic and hectic at the collegiate level that were going to resolve themselves may or may not have been resolved at the high school level, but then that just opens up a whole another door of challenges, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be adaptable. Learning on the fly right now, but that's hopefully I think you'll get everything going in the direction you want to very soon. Hey, but I know for the longest time, you've always you can't say balanced. There's not really a balance in strength conditioning or in coaching, more like manage or juggle, but you've always seemed to manage having multiple kind of things going on at once. In addition to coaching, like we talked about, you have your own online presence and working with other clienteles that are powerlifters and just general want to get fitness advice from you. And I know you've done a lot of stuff in the past, like being a manager, even being a soccer coach at one point too. You talked about, and then also working in the Philly area, just trying to there's so many, for those that don't know, I think you can throw a rock and hit 20 different schools from just downtown Philly. So
last time I checked, I did the research on this. I believe that the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs are the most densely populated collegiate region in the country. So there's more Division I, Division II, Division III schools in the Philadelphia area than anywhere else in the country. So that's a lot of strength conditioning coaches. I know where you're going with it.
That's wild. Hey, so balancing or not balancing, but managing and trying to juggle all these things. I know you've created a few things and you've tried to tie in all those coaches together and give an opportunity for continuing education, just to kind of do things like this where you're breaking bread with them or just kind of talking shop with the Philly area community and the monthly meetups and stuff. How did you kind of go about setting that stuff up? And then how are you kind of delegating time and between all these different kind of philanthropic things or your individual coaching stuff that doesn't really take away from what your primary job is?
Yeah. I started the Philly Area Strength Conditioning Association I guess it's hard. It's this pandemic year. Everyone's going to say it. I don't remember timelines for things, but I want to say it was 10 years ago now, maybe. No, it had to be a little bit after that. So 9 years ago, 2012, I guess it was. And that just started out as a luncheon that we had at Temple, where I invited all the other strength conditioning coaches in the area to come and have a late lunch, early dinner with us and just talk shop. I just wanted it to be an open format. I did not want there to be any sort of formality, formal presentations given. It's not a clinic. It's not a conference. There's not somebody talking at us. It's a chance to meet everybody, look everybody in the eye, shake their hand, introduce yourself, get to know each other on a personal level rather than, Google searching who's the strength conditioning coach at this college. Oh, okay. That's guy, you look at his picture on his bio and now you know the guy, right? Or you shot a few emails back and forth because interns want to come to an in-service or, Zoom came along, now we're doing a Zoom thing. Let's meet up, let's just hang out. Let's eat something, and let's just talk, and let's not talk about strength conditioning, or we can talk about strength conditioning, throw ideas around. And that worked out really well. Now, unbeknownst to me, that Mike Rankin at Drexel And Lon Record, who I worked for at Villanova, had attempted to do something similar, both separately in the past. I don't have answers as to why mine kind of blew up and worked out, but at that first one, we had 50 strength conditioning coaches. So the standard was set. And I continued to do that for a couple years. And this kind of ties in with the rest of your question, but I just felt like I needed something different at that point, something more. So I brought in Mike Rankin and Corey Waltz to help me out. We had bounced around locations for a few years because it's not a Temple thing, right? It's not a me thing. It was a Philly Area Strength and Conditioning Association thing. I created that or helped create it, but I didn't want to take ownership of it. So I wanted that to move around and for us to have different locations and see different people's facilities, weight rooms, hang out on different campuses, make it easier for different people to come. So we did the luncheon for a bunch of years. And then the year before the pandemic here, we started doing stuff in the summer where we were doing monthly meetups and we would just do different things. We went axe throwing. We went to different beer gardens. There was like ideas of going to a Phillies game and stuff like that thrown around. And that was awesome. I mean, that was just like a rotating who's who of strength conditioning, RSVP, or, for certain ones or whoever can make it. And that was always a consistent, like 20 to 30 different people coming through. So there was some overlap there with who would show up one month and, who's in and out. And that was completely awesome. I mean, that was the direction we were headed. And then since the pandemic, we haven't done anything. Philly was locked down for the longest time. That makes stuff really difficult. And then, I just really haven't got it back up and going yet, but it's certainly not dead. The plan is there. There's been a lot of turnover in the field here locally lately.
Right.
So there's a lot of new faces coming into town and they probably don't know about that, but I'd love to get it up and going again.
No, I love that. And I was always jealous of it, and I kind of took it for granted for those on the East Coast that realize like all the site visits I used to do and like all the different universities I interned at on the East Coast were so close together. And I think that was partly why this kind of started, was when I got to Fresno, and it's not the middle of the country, but you're landlocked, and the nearest, like, there's a few universities close by, but really you have to go 2 hours away to get to anything. So the opportunity to do that stuff is few and far between, but I think a lot of people should take that model and kind of run with it. I know that's one thing that we're trying to do down here in Jacksonville, and UNF right down the road, since we're in the same city, like they've been great hosts so far and trying to get us together and do things like that, because there's so much in the area and there's so much you can learn from. If it's a Division 1, 2, 3, it's a minor league, it's a professional team. If it's a really successful CrossFit gym or something like that, just kind of getting everybody together that's like-minded and thinking. And like you said, it's an open forum. It doesn't need to be strength conditioning based, but I think if you go to any of the national conferences and you start off talking about like life and everything, we have a roundabout way of getting back to coaching.
Yeah.
And we don't mean to, I think we're all wired that way. So it's cool to get people in an area that at least like do stuff similar, have the same thought process, and just kind of hang out.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that too, because that's really where it started at for me. It is kind of, I wanted it to be the anti-clinic or the anti-conference, because there's just a certain air that comes with being at the national conference, and doesn't matter how much you know somebody, or everyone's buying for someone else's attention at those things. And I'm a reserved, quiet person by nature. I'm not super social. I've got to be really comfortable to be in those situations. So I'm not just going to walk up to random strength conditioning coaches at conference and start conversations. That's just not me. So this is me finding a way. Like, for me to host an event is kind of weird within itself, because I'm just not that person. But this was the way that where I could be comfortable with it. So that's kind of where it came from. And then even at those conferences, again, I'm not saying anything bad about the conferences. They're all great experiences, but it's just different in a way. And, they would have the socials on the first day of like the CSCCA or NSCA, something like that. And me and Tim Teefy, we would always have ourselves the anti-social social. So anybody who wanted to come hang out with us, we would go see the city and whatever city we were in, get barbecue and do things with that. Do stuff like that.
Oh, go to Disney World.
Yeah, go to Disney World. But I do need to shout out Hewitt from Team Builder and Lon Record again from Hammer Strength and Hammer Strength for being our sponsor for those events for so many years. They bought a lot of food and a lot of beers for us strength conditioning coaches. So I do need to shout them out on the PASCA.
A lot is probably an understatement for the latter. No, but I think that was one of the things that really drew me in too when Villanova and Lon Record used to do the hammer strength clinics there, because those seemed like that's what I thought the format for clinics were more about. Like there were so many breaks in between. There was the opportunity to kind of just walk around campus, talk to people as you wanted to, break out. It wasn't too big. Like the presentations were awesome, but like being able to just kind of go hang out in the weight rooms and talk to the staff there and see the campus. Like I thought they did a really good job. And then you kind of started seeing some of the other conferences and it just became so like suit and tie, dressed up, and it became a formality. And I like the hangout sessions and like the little breakout rooms where those are the conversations I remember the most. And it's great to go see people, but like I want to sit down and have a genuine conversation with someone else.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you bring up the hammer strength clinic because obviously I said I worked for Lon at Villanova, helping him put on those clinics as a young strength conditioning coach. I mean, that was a huge opportunity for me, and I'm sure, observing from afar, I probably stole a lot of that unknowingly to get that done. But yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. That's a awesome format, and they were doing those for a lot of years. And then I think it was really Lon and the Villanova one being a yearly consistent basis that like took those to another level.
For sure. Yeah, I think those at least for me, I went to as many as I could that were around the Nova area, and I think that's a great way to kind of elevate and contribute to the profession. And you've done it a bunch of different ways, obviously, with the Philly area strength conditioning one, and I'm definitely going to steal that model and talk to you more about some stuff, because I just like reaching out to different people and picking their brains and meeting new coaches. But like, for what advice would you kind of have for young coaches looking for starting something like that or connecting with other coaches, maybe not like creating their own conference, but just reaching out? Because I know that Temple, and I've always stole this from you guys, your guys' site visits are an awesome way to kind of bring stuff back to your department, but also give those coaches an opportunity to go see someone else in action, meet new coaches, or even like young advice for young coaches looking to start like a side hustle, even if it's not going to be financially beneficial. Maybe they find their own little passion project.
Yeah. Okay, a couple questions there. So I think in terms of like doing site visits at Temple and advice for younger coaches, I think for me, it always goes back to just the formality of things. And it's like doing things just because you have to do it. Doing a site visit just because your internship requires it or your school requires it. It's like, we can do that. We can fulfill that requirement for you. But in particular, like with me and with Coach Teefy at Temple, it was always like, we're also going to be honest and we're going to show you the reality of our program. And that goes back to me saying every situation is different. Like you can walk into Temple and think things are amazing and I'm going to do things exactly that way, or you can have the opposite opinion, right? But what we're always going to do is not put up a curtain or a facade and say, well, this is how everything goes. It's like, this is our scenario. This is our reality. This is why things are the way they are at this university, because this is the best way we found to operate within the parameters that we've been given. So every time I try and go somewhere, or I talk to somebody, or when I go to a conference, I'm just looking for one or two things that I can take away. If I can get those two things, then that's great. Something that I can take and implement and learn from or research more on. I'm not trying to sell the farm on one person's ideas, which is what I think a lot of younger strength conditioning coaches do. They just go, they buy in, they go whole hog into one program, one philosophy, one strength coach to idolize, without really ever getting the context or the framework around what's going on. So we always try to give the context, the framework of why we're doing what we're doing. Hand the packet over to somebody when they walk through the door. Here's your formality stuff. Here's the questions you're going to ask me. They're already answered in this packet right here. This is what the program looks like. These are our rules. This is how everybody operates. Okay, now that you can take that home and read that on your own. Now let's talk about what's really going on here, why we're doing what we're doing, and how it is the way it is.
I love that. Yeah, the context is big. And I think young coaches, and I fell victim to this when I first started as well. Like, you get pretty enamored with either a big program or a high level coach or the success of a team, and you feel like that's the way to do it. And you go whole hog in it, and this is the way to do it. And I think a lot of people, like, to use like the Alabama example, everybody copied the Scott Cochran model for the longest time. And it's not a bad thing to do, because you see success, you see the result of the success. So you copy what the process was to get to that. But the context is huge. Do you have the same players? Do you have the same coaching staff? Do you have the same situation, like same financial backing? Like, we can go down the line of all the things that are context driven, that are situation driven, that will not yield the same results. So going into a conference and taking one thing, talking to one person and taking one thing that directly applies to you, or that you can pull and continue to do research on, I think that's huge. That's great advice for any coach.
Yeah. And obviously you don't know what you don't know. So when you're a young strength coach and you don't have experience and you go down that route, that's fine. I mean, we all did it. I mean, trust me, the cheerleaders used to do the football strength conditioning program when I was 22 years old. That we've all done that. Okay. I thought I knew everything and how to program everything. And just because you can do 10 reps at 75% means that we could do, 5 sets of 10 at 75%. And I see that program from interns all the time. It's the journey, it's the path, but it's the ability then to kind of like parse out the experiences from making those mistakes that you are inevitably going to make, and understanding that where you need to change things, what worked and what didn't work, and not just continuing to do the same thing. Again, because that's what a large program does. And that's the context that gets taken out in a lot of the bigger conferences. That's just the way the conferences are designed. Like, whoever won the national championship last year, we're going to hear that strength conditioning coach speak. Obviously, all credit to the strength conditioning program for that national championship. And then there's no context around it. This is our program, or, this is our nutrition, this is our sports performance, all that stuff. And, speaking to a lot of those coaches that give those presentations, they know what the people want to hear, and they just feel, they're filling those gaps. They don't necessarily feel great about it. They don't feel like they can have those conversations or open up to a huge crowd of people about the reality of what it is to be a collegiate or a professional strength and conditioning coach.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the things that, even though, like we say, it's not a requirement, but it's kind of part of the internship process or anything, like all the site visits and stuff. And we see it from young interns, like copying the one model and you see kind of programs and those mistakes that we made. I think a lot of ways to avoid it. And I think you guys have done it like either consciously or subconsciously, but going to see those different places. And even though you're in one place, like doing your internship for however many weeks or months, going to see other places and immersing yourself with them for a day, you come back and you're not just only thinking about this school's program. You're getting outside knowledge and you're bringing it back and getting small little experiences. And I think most people that have spent their time at one place that never really reach out and broaden their knowledge or talk to other people just don't realize that there's a whole new world out there. There's so many other avenues. It's not just how we've always done it. There's room for advancement. There's room for stealing ideas from other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this industry is all about stealing ideas from other people. That's what it is. Like someone has a great idea, it works. You try it out, you tweak it. Someone takes that idea, they tweak it. But having the multiple experiences is huge. I think it's great if you find an internship that you can just latch onto and you're just all about that, but you still need to expose yourself to other scenarios, because when you go to interview for that next job, you're not going to be walking into the same situation that you walked into at whatever internship you were at, whether that's a private sector job or, a gym, or it's a collegiate job, anything like that. So what I advise my interns and my graduate, anyone who's ever worked for me, is you're going to learn twice as many things what not to do from me than as you are what to do. I was like, but understand that you don't have to be me. That's all part of the experience. So take the good and take the bad. Understand when I'm in Sam's position, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I would do something different in this scenario. I wouldn't, do exactly what he did or how he did it. And that's fine. That's all well and good. That is 100% part of the experience. And I would rather have people say, I'm not going to do what you do, than to just go along blindly with everything I do. Because do I make the right decision 100% of the time? Absolutely not. But I do have some experience to back up the decisions that I do make.
Right. No, that's a great point. I mean, you don't need to copy and paste what another coach is doing. And I think learning those experiences and be like getting all the information and writing down the things and kind of having a plan in place for what you would do in your supervisor's chair. Like if you were given that opportunity, what would you be able to do? What decisions would you do differently? And then openly learn from them. That's what's great about those positions. When you have someone that's directly overseeing you, you have a fail safe to kind of make mistakes, run ideas past, and see what's really going on behind the scenes. Because I know that was one thing, like taking steps in your career, not understanding like what administrative roles, all the paperwork is, just speaking to coaches, like depending on your internship, you might not ever talk to a head coach. You might never talk to an athletic trainer. And then if you're not prepared for those things, or you don't understand like what the right approach is or what your approach would be, then you're not really prepared for what's next. And that's the cool thing about what you guys, and I know what you've done, is you've laid all that on the table. You showed them what it is. And then for better or for worse, you guys will make your own decisions when you're then my position next time.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, so I know on top of things at one point in time, I don't know if you're still currently doing this, but you've published papers and you've been an adjunct professor.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still doing adjunct teaching at the moment?
So I published one paper. I was a co-author on one research paper. So don't give me too much credit there.
One more than me.
It was fun, but it's not my favorite thing to do. And I am not currently employed as an adjunct professor at Temple. After coming back from COVID and they kind of reestablishing what's important, they have more full-time professors there. So there's some less adjuncts. We'll put it that way. So
Gotcha.
I do not have that opportunity this semester, but it was certainly something that I enjoyed. Again, it was an experience for me because now I'm viewing things from a different lens and a different aspect. And the class that I was fortunate enough to teach and help design with Dr. Anthony Scherza, who's also no longer at Temple. He approached me and had an idea for this class, and we sat down and we designed it together. And it was Olympic and powerlifting. And basically it broke down to me teaching the same progressions that I teach our athletes for squat, bench. Temple, we didn't really deadlift per se, but clean pulls. I teach the kids in class how to deadlift, and then teach the Olympic lifts. We're cleaning, we're snatching, and we're jerking. So I was able to give my approach and my reasoning for the progression that I use for our student athletes with those things, and then also give them alternatives to that in class, and then kind of allow them to formulate their own coaching style. First day of class, who wants to be a strength conditioning coach? Maybe 2 people. Who wants to be a physical therapist? And 5 hands go up. Who wants to be an athletic trainer? Another 5 hands go up. Okay, so we're all working in a different area, but we're all going to come across individuals who either do these things or want to do these things as part of being competitive or staying healthy. Here's my frame of reference, and then I'll give you as many frame of references that I have to go along with that. But the most important thing about this class is that you develop your own beliefs and foundation for these movements, whether you're going to use them or not, for yourself or for your clients. That's really what that class was all about, which is just an extension of my coaching philosophy.
No, I like that. And selfishly, I've always wished that what my program was. And I asked that question because I think that's one thing that's really lacking from like undergraduate degrees, like exercise science. I don't know if it was just at that point in time, I knew I wanted to coach, and I knew I was pretty enamored with like the coaching side of it and all the programming, the technique. So I was already training, and it seemed just so rudimentary, like how the program was structured. And we really just kind of skimmed the surface of everything and really didn't get any of the technical work or any of the progressions. And I hope that is something that kind of gets shifted and it becomes more advanced, because I think it's beneficial, even if it's a room like you talked about, where some people want to be personal trainers, some want to be strength coaches, ATCs, physical therapists, nurses, whatever. Like, it's still nice to have a cursory knowledge of that and understand, even if you're not going to be in that, it's a healthy lifestyle. There's a training element to it. And at some point in time in one of those 5 careers or whatever career it is, you're going to come in contact with someone that is doing that, or you're going to be working with someone that directly oversees those things. So like, I don't understand why that was not a bigger course, at least in mine, like undergraduate and master's program, when like I'm doing cardiopulmonary stuff and I don't work with anybody that does it, or I'm doing all these different things that I don't see as often as I know you'll see someone who's training, and you should know that knowledge.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to a very broad audience when you say that you feel that way. I mean, I can relate to that 100%. I think there's a lot of people. I don't have the answers as to why, it's more focused that way. I think in general, I mean, I know strength conditioning is a relatively new profession. Personal training is being taken a lot more seriously as a profession than maybe it was back in the past. And we just have a ton of health professionals, physical therapists in particular, that I work with and continue to work with, that are fully immersed into resistance training, lifting weights, living that active lifestyle, being competitive. And I think that just completely is starting to shift the framework of the educational system, but it's a slow shift. Obviously, early adapters are going to be ahead of everything, and then the education has to catch up with it. But that class for me, I think when you were speaking, it just reminded me of taking the USAW certification with Leo Totten And that's kind of what my class was. It was half, we're just drilling these exercises. Like, we're getting tired, we're sweating, and then we're conceptualizing those things for the other half of the class. And that was the best I could come up with for what's important for learning those things. Again, it's time under the bar. It's time actually spending doing those things. So.
Oh yeah, I love that. I think those classes need to be at least 50-50 lab practical setting and educational setting too. But that's later down the line. Hopefully that profession shifts that way. Like, athletic training is starting to advance and try to become a little bit more legitimate with what they're doing as a program.
Yeah.
Hopefully strength conditioning kind of follows suit, and we start seeing maybe undergraduate degrees that are specifically tailored towards people wanting to be in the collegiate or professional or high school setting or tactical setting. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we see, I mean, there's a few of those out there, and there's just like, there's such a greater edge for programs like that. I mean, it's like by picking the right internship too, you just have a little bit more of an edge on the competition. I mean, we know a bunch of those, Springfield and Salisbury, and just programs like that. They're just the leading edge of putting people out there into the profession, both athletic training and strength conditioning. And more of those are popping up, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think you're right too. If the educational system's not really, it's going to take a lot slower process just because all the red tape that goes into getting accredited and those classes approved. You're really starting to see coaches like crack into the profession and really break through just based off how intensive and how encompassing their internship programs are and their curriculum and who they're learning from. And that in itself now is becoming kind of the gold standard for young coaches getting through. Is like, where did you go learn from, and what did you do within your internship? And I think we both know, we've talked to enough people and talked to enough coaches that not every internship is exactly the same, and you're going to learn a lot of different things from them. But that could make or break like the start of your career and put you on a good track, or you could be a few years behind, just not and being just some guy that makes smoothies all day.
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword, I think, for sure. Because going back to kind of my holistic approach, I don't know that it's the right thing to do to expect people who are already going in debt to go to college and to work for free constantly or for very low wages and try and balance their schoolwork with multiple internships. But I'm just completely blown away and amazed at the number of internships and experiences that people are getting these days. I mean, the number of freshmen and sophomores that would come and just volunteer their time with me or with us. And they're racking up 4 or 5 different internships just through the 4 years where they're in school and setting themselves up amazingly for their careers. And I think it's awesome. Again, I kind of have mixed feelings about it because I don't want them working for free. I would pay everybody if I could. That's just not the way the system's set up. But on the flip side of that, I did one internship because it was required for me to graduate. And, had someone said, again, me not knowing anything about strength conditioning really, had someone said, well, you should go volunteer here or do a couple internships, then I would have known that it would have helped me out. But the word's getting out there now. And thank God for the guys at Nova who I worked under, volunteered under, and then they were kind enough to bring me on as a part of the staff. And that's what got my career going with very minimal experience. Again, I had the cheerleaders out there doing the same program that the football players were doing and stuff like that. And I'm 21, 22 years old, but that was my only experience at the time. So the fact that all these younger people are getting those numbers, different experiences, I think they're so far ahead of the game. But then obviously the competition level goes up at that point too. And it's a very competitive field.
Right. Yeah. The job increase is not meeting the demands at the moment, but Yeah, I think you're right. You were like from the time that we were in school, um, you're starting to see a shift because now like like we said, when we both went to college, we really didn't know strength conditioning was a profession.
Mm.
And now we're getting kids that seem to be like going to college with the sole purpose of being a collegiate strength coach and setting themselves up for success right out of it, and maybe being able to skip like graduate assistants or being
Yeah.
able to go to the top tier ones just based off their background and experience throughout college.
Hmm.
So definitely seeing a shift with all that stuff, it looks like.
Or you're seeing, to go into the side hustle thing, which you mentioned a few times, and I still haven't answered. Um, there's people starting to see that you can do these things, but have a more lucrative or maybe stable career than being a collegiate strength conditioning coach. To go back to a lot of my PT friends, they're physical therapists who are physical therapists by day, but they're Olympic weightlifting coaches or powerlifting coaches by night, and they do this stuff themselves. They love it. They're fully immersed into whatever you want to call it. I don't want to say fitness, but physical activity, being competitive, um, and that's framing their kind of view of their profession, which is physical therapy. And I think it's awesome. There's just a ton of awesome physical therapists out there now, but they're proving that you can be a strength coach and not just be a strength coach, right? You can do stuff on the side. There's plenty of people out there who are looking for that, and you can just offer greater value by having more skills. So that kind of, there's definitely a shift going on. I can't say I know exactly what it is, but I knew for me personally, at the collegiate level, I feel like that used to be the hotbed of strength and conditioning. You were getting folks fresh out of high school who may have had a little bit of experience with strength conditioning, but probably not. And the collegiate level was going to be the peak of their athletic career. Specifically, most of the individuals that I would work with the Olympic sports. And then even, you work with football and basketball, such a small percentage that are going to go on and play professionally. So you're working with people at the peak of their career. That 4 or 5 year journey that you get to take with them, I thought that was where it's at. That was my place where I could really impart some knowledge, some really good healthy habits, you teach them some values and some things about life that maybe they needed at that point in their life. I mean, they're moving away from home. They're going to a strange place. They're going to school. They're playing a sport. They're juggling all these different things. I was hoping to make some sort of positive impact on them. In the last few years, you've just seen so many more kids coming out of high school with a ton of experience with coaches, good and bad, strength and conditioning wise, or just skill coach wise, and all the different clubs and the private stuff that's going on. I think there's just a big shift in that direction, where I think youth is now going to be the hot spot for teaching a lot of those things. But I also think it's important to, develop some sort of long-term athletic development plan for the youth and try and make a bigger impact overall in our youth sports. And on the individual level, just teaching these kids proper movement, full range of motion stuff like proprioception. It's not all about, it is all about, getting them recruited or making them faster, making them stronger. Those are some of the outcomes, hopefully. But I think the behind the scenes stuff that's more important is actually teaching them how to move properly. And let's actually prevent some sort of injury. And, I'll probably get judged for saying prevent injury, but let's lessen the likelihood that an injury may occur through proper mechanics and teaching them proper technique when lifting or changing direction, cutting, doing all those things. So that was what piqued my interest in kind of shifting my career to a different level and seeing if I can open some doors there in terms of making a bigger impact on some people that I worked with.
That's great. I think you're absolutely right. I think everybody got pretty enamored with college athletics and professional just because the exposure that you see and kind of the allure of it being on TV and kind of the lucrativeness. But like we all know that that's the top 1%, and 1% is being very generous of what that really is. So I think there's going to be a shift. I mean, there's already a shift. You see it from people leaving college profession to go to the tactical side. I think the youth side is going to be the next big one, because I think you have more of an impact and you can set them up for greater success. And if you catch them early, like we know being in college setting for so long, we have to end up unfucking a lot of kids for maybe the first year or two, just from all the things that have gone wrong, just like movement aside, just like having bad coaches, having a bad experience, feeling like they're being forced to be in college athletics now. There's so many issues that athletes have coming into it that they end up, some of them don't even like playing their sport anymore. So
Right.
to be able to have an impact with them early on in their career when they're first starting, I think that's huge. And I think that's the direction that it's going to go.
Yeah, and I've heard some people, say, I don't know, I've seen memes or something somewhere where, if you paid a youth trainer, get your money back, or it's a waste of time and this and that. But to me, I say, is it really? Because let's not forget that these kids and their parents, they're going to do this stuff anyways, right? So they may as well, or you may as well be able to provide a quality service to them. And then maybe we won't have such bad coaches making a ton of money at that level. If we have some quality individuals who want to step up and fill those gaps.
Right. Hey, so we kind of touched on it, and you kind of allured to the point of kind of starting your own side hustle and everything. So with like yours now, We Train Clan, like you're going about practical programming with a bunch of different people. Can you kind of tie into that and speak a little bit more about what the need for it was, or why you wanted to actually start it and kind of get that thing off the ground, and what it's kind of grown into since you first started it?
Yeah. I mean, it really started as nothing. It was obviously just a lot of people reaching out to me, asking if I'd be willing to program for them, which, I always did, but being as busy as I am, I never put much thought into, just sending them a program. They said, hey, do you have that old program we used to do? So-and-so. Yeah, sure. Here you go. Never really was able to evaluate what their current needs are and what are you actually looking for? Like, what's missing in your life? Why are you reaching out to me right now? Why are you reaching out to me in particular? And asking me for these things, like, what exactly is it that you need? And when I started asking those questions, that's when people started offering, well, yeah, I'll pay you to write me a program for this specific reason. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to say no to that. So, a lot of people were reaching out to me, asking, a lot of former athletes that I had, and not to toot my own horn, but strength conditioning was a great part of my college career. Like, I loved when we did X, Y, and Z. I would love to be able to continue that in some fashion. I think with that, the rise in popularity now of actually getting in the gym and lifting weights, being seen as an okay thing rather than just using machines or whatever. More of the style that we would use, ground-based, compound, big range of motion movements. We're talking about barbell lifts. That's more acceptable now. It's more acceptable for females to walk in the gym and squat. So those people are reaching out to me saying, I really enjoyed that. They're telling me they're comfortable continuing to do those things. So I'm putting myself out there to fill that need. And it's grown organically. I mean, making it formally a business, just to get the word out there, and just kind of corral everything that I had going on together into one location. But it started out primarily as alumni that I've had throughout the years from the three different universities that I was at. And it's quickly transformed into, a lot of referrals coming in. I've partnered up with, I'm actually wearing Coach Medina's shirt right now, partnered up with a coach that I used to work with and his running company. So he does marathon training, Coach Medina NYC, plug him. So I partnered up with him. So I got that going on. I have a couple other projects that are included in that, training a couple club sports teams and things like that go along with my side business. But it is still primarily just the individual custom programs, taking that holistic approach and applying it to the individual and in a different setting. And you can get programs out there for free on the internet. I mean, you can get programs out there for cheap, $35, 12 weeks, download it, print it out. There you have it. But I think it's the relationships that I'm building with people, whether they are former athletes of mine and we have a standing relationship, or it's a referral and I'm just getting to know this person. I think there's a certain quality aspect that I'm providing, that people are willing to pay for that service. So it is about the custom program. It is about understanding your lifestyle, similar to like a tactical strength conditioning coach. Like, what are the demands of your job? What's your day-to-day look like? How much realistic time can we devote towards training? And let's maximize that time that you have. And I think that's where I've been successful, is just really not tying myself to a 3 or 4 day program or a total body or, an upper lower split or anything like that. It's, let's really figure out what you need. And I'm not married to any one idea. We're going to change, we'll adapt, and we'll make what works for you. And that's what keeps my retention rates pretty high.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a great market to kind of tap into. I mean, like you said, I think it really happened organically and just from people reaching out. And I'll toot your horn because and you can be as humble as you want, but I think people are not going to reach out to you if they really didn't buy into it. You didn't have a relationship with them when you were in school. And like you said, from 3 different places, you're having people talk to you. So you definitely had an impact. And if they're reaching out, they want more. I think that's great because, as we both know, the majority of athletes are not going professional. I'll say that till I'm blue in the face. So if you really have an impact with your athletes in a college setting, then you should be setting them up for success for what they do in their own professional lives, what they do after. And if they love training, if they love like that healthy lifestyle, they want to continue to be a part of it and maybe train like they were athletes, like doing barbell movements, or they want to switch it up, and you're able to facilitate that and ask those questions that give them the right program, not just a copy and paste one that you're pulling off the internet. Why wouldn't you not pay for that quality? You paid for that quality when you chose the school you went to and you got the scholarship and all those sort of things. Like, why would you not continue to pay for a program that was thought out, made directly for you by someone you trust or someone that referred you that you trust as well?
Right. And it's never, I heard a debate recently, and it's certainly never going to take the place of coaching in person. I mean, it's not really online coaching, right? I'm critiquing videos after the fact, or, if you're shooting me a text in the middle of your lift, I may or may not answer by the time you're done with your set, so it's never going to take place of in-person coaching, but it also has more flexibility than maybe having a personal trainer, where you may have to schedule an appointment ahead of time, get to the gym at a certain time. It just allows much more flexibility for them to be able to go to the gym when they want to go to the gym. I can get back to them as soon as possible. We can correct, we can make progress for next week. We can make changes. if things arise. It's just much more flexible, and I think it fits people's lifestyle in today's world much better to take that step and have an online coach or someone programming for them online who they can communicate with after the fact.
Yeah, I think flexibility is huge because, like you said, when you in the college setting or high school, you know exactly what they're doing and you can plan the program for it. So by asking those questions, like what they're doing, like is their job labor intensive, and not being married to a 3 or 4 day program, you can really create something specifically for them that fits, and then adapt and overcome whatever kind of challenges they oversee or any things that they feel are pertinent to change. So I think it's definitely a great avenue, and like I applaud you for doing it. It's definitely difficult to go through that process and kind of get the first initial stages going. So I know that was a struggle, and it was something that you were definitely planning for a long time coming. So it's cool to see it finally come to fruition for you.
Yeah, it's, owning a business is definitely challenging. I think once you commit to making it an actual brand, I mean, if you look at my Instagram, I mean, speaking of it being organic, I'm me on Instagram, and We Train Clan has maybe a dozen followers, I think, so it's not the brand. I'm not the brand either. I'm just the person that the people know. So it's still very much just me. It's not really that LLC or the business, but I did want to throw some formality on there and have a website and have an Instagram page for it, and be able to share client success if they wanted me to, which is funny because I have a ton of clients, and it's just like the quietest group of people of all time. They're very easy to coach, very coachable, but they don't post on social media. They don't want to be hyped up. So they certainly haven't helped me grow awareness of the brand either, but that's okay. Like I'm too busy right now, and it's an awesome thing. I have to turn people away. So it's good. It's good.
That's good. You found some like-minded people for now. Maybe you'll get some more boisterous ones down the line.
Well, like I said, my retention rate's really high, so I think that's awesome. I mean, that's a win for me. And if I am going to take credit for anything, I think that speaks to who I am as a person and as a coach. So that's probably the thing that makes me the happiest out of anything, really. I'm not looking for more clients. They come to me and they stick around. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And you have the opportunity now to work with people for more than just those 4 years, which is awesome. And I mean, eventually you, like, at least from my point of view, from the college setting, I want your training to outlive your time with me. Mm-hmm. And for you now, you have the ability to kind of continue to train and work with them extended past those 4 years, which never would have come without having those first initial ones together. So that's awesome to be able to kind of continue the evolution going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, everything we do today impacts tomorrow. So every day that we spent together in those 4 years, it's still in one way or another impacting people today. And we can continue that relationship, down the line too. So
no doubt. Hey, so Sam, I know, like any good training session, we end the show with a good finisher. So I got 4 quarters for you.
Okay.
4 questions, and then maybe a little bit of overtime. So okay, you can go as fast as you want. We can go rapid fire, or you could take your time on each question, but you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. First one I got for you. Biggest influence in strength and conditioning, and biggest influence in powerlifting.
Wow. I don't know. That's tough for me to say. Like I said before, it's tough because I don't idolize anybody really. I look up to a lot of the different strength conditioning coaches. Certainly everyone that I've worked with has had an impact on me in some way. Everyone that I've worked for has had a huge impact on me in some way as well. So I would just say shout out to all those people. They know who they are, whether I worked for you or worked with you. Shout out to you. You made me a better person. I hope I did the same for you.
How about in
Powerlifting?
Yeah, powerlifting.
I would probably have to say Nate Harvey. He trained me for a long time. I think every good coach needs a great coach. Nate was in the collegiate setting for a very long time. I got in contact with him through Justice Gallick, who I worked for at Nova. They were teammates. And then obviously we know Nate Harvey has his own thing going on right now, but he's associated with Elite FTS. So Nate was huge for me. I trained with him for like 2 years. Saw a lot of PRs. But I think overall just his mentality and the like fun loving, relaxed person that he is, and how he can combine that with being a psycho and powerlifting, it just matches who I am. So it was fun training with him.
Man, I should have guessed that one. That seems like a perfect pairing now that I think about it. Awesome. Hey, well, the next one I got for you, like we talked about, your side hustles have now cousin side hustles. So when you're not coaching or competing or doing some of that strength conditioning stuff, what are some of your hobbies outside of that?
My biggest hobby, well, really two different things. I don't know which is more important to me because they're both pretty huge. Traveling, seeing different countries, going to the beach. Florida, Miami is always a hot spot for me. That's always like a quick jaunt down there and back. But traveling is huge. That has really sucked in the last year and a half. And then live music is the other big one for me. And that's probably only more important because I listen to music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at all times. I listen to all types of music. Everyone says that. Don't say that to me because no, you don't listen to every type of music. I listen to every type of music. I'll listen to country, blues, bluegrass, gangster rap. 90s rap is my favorite. I'll switch it up and I'll listen to metal. I will go to any live show, big or small, any artist, doesn't matter. My New Year's resolution in 2019 was to go to 19 different concerts. I went to 25. So I did 2 a month, 1 every other week while working, as you said, 2 full-time jobs. So that's huge for me. Now, obviously, I'm glad I got to do that because, again, last year and a half has sucked in terms of live music. So those are my 2 favorite things.
I like it. It's starting to come back, but hey, Jacksonville's in Florida and we got live music. So
yeah,
whenever you're down here.
True. I have never traveled to Jacksonville, but hey, I'm game.
You got a place to live. We got a place to blast some music too. Hey, so if you weren't coaching, what do you think you would be doing as a profession? And if you could pick a different sport other than powerlifting, what would you pick?
Oh, those are good questions. I was really into art and drawing when I was younger. So I was kind of between that and some sort of athletic training, which turned into strength and conditioning. Music is also an art. So I do believe I would be probably in that space, but that's not something I actually give a lot of thought to because I am a strength and conditioning coach and I have not found something else that I would enjoy more. I have looked, yes. And then another sport, my favorite event is just the 100-meter sprint. So like if I could be a competitive sprinter, that would be awesome. If I could just run really, really fast for a short period of time, that would probably be my other thing.
Nice. All right. So if you're going to set up an ideal training day for yourself, what's your PR song and what is your go-to post-training meal look like?
My PR song there's one standard, and then there's several backups depending on the mood of the room. Destroy Everything by Hatebreed has been my PR song since probably like 2008. So that one will always get me going. And then my secondary one would probably be Knuck If You Buck by Crime Mob. If the mood is right, that one comes on. Specifically, if you can time your lift to drop whenever the beat drops. So I usually use that one for squat, so I can have time to walk it out, and then as soon as the beat drops, I can hit the hole. Post-workout meal. Ooh, I'm not the nutrition guy. I hate to say it.
No, this is your meal. This is your meal. This is not.
Yeah.
This is not pyramid scheme version.
I don't know. At post-workout meal, I don't know. Probably some like chicken parm or something like that. Like if I could just get down on that. I really want to say like pizza and wings, but I don't think I've ever eaten pizza after lifting. It just wouldn't feel right. But those are my favorite foods.
There you go. All right. So the last one I got for you for overtime. What's the most valuable piece of advice you've received? And if you want to share, from who?
Yeah, those kind of all run together. Like I said, I take a lot of stuff from different places, grab one or two things. There's a lot of quotes, a lot of sayings. Oh man. I think just the biggest thing that has stuck with me, and I don't know who told me this, but it had to be sometime early in my career, is just never expect something from your athletes or the people that you work with that you don't expect from yourself. So again, it goes back to spending the time training, like actually knowing what it feels like to be under the bar and to do everything that you're asking somebody else to do.
I like it. I think that is a great way to put it. And it's a good thing to have in your repertoire. I mean, we're not asking people to do more than what we're asking ourselves to do. And I want the same expectations for my athletes imposed on me that I'm imposing on them. It's a two-way street. So that's great, man.
I do think I have one more.
Yeah, go for it.
And I remember Coach Dave Feely, when he was with us at Temple with football, and he spoke at the Hammer Strength Clinic that we had down at the NovaCare Center at the Eagles complex. He was a big fan of overhead squats as an assessment and as a warm-up. But one thing he said that stuck with me, and I had it on a Post-it note on my desk, was don't hit the panic button. And I think in this profession, there's a large group of people who want to tell you if someone's not capable of doing something absolutely perfectly, or their technique starts to break down, that they shouldn't be doing that. They should never do that again. But the fact is, we learn from our mistakes, right? We need to explore the edge of our motion and range of motion and our capabilities. And he was using it in that context, basically like saying like someone's squat is not going to always look perfect, but when their form breaks down, that gives us the data points we need to make those corrections. So it's very important that they actually do it, even if they're not perfect at it, right? So it's very hard to expect someone to be perfect at something that they're not allowed to practice at. So there's a catch-22 there. So that stuck with me both in that context and then just in day-to-day life too. It's like, just don't hit the panic button. Like the first reaction doesn't need to be the actual reaction to anything. There's always a space to analyze what's going on, and there's always room for improvement. So don't hit the panic button.
I like that. That's great. Yeah, there's no one size fit all for that. And that's perfect. That's a perfect way to put it. Hey, so for anybody that has further questions, I know you're full up right now with your clients.
Yeah.
But where can people follow you, follow up and have any questions, or follow We Train Clan as well as yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On Instagram and Twitter, I am Coach S.36. We Train Clan. is on Instagram and Twitter as well. I'll respond on either one of those. I'm probably bigger on Instagram. Anybody who wants to get a hold of me through there can DM me. I'm happy to help out, answer questions. The website, wetrainclan.com. That's it. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. And, I'm happy to help anybody who seeks me out. I take it as a compliment. So happy to help out.
Awesome, Sam. Hey, well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, man. We met a long time ago. I've tried to send some interns your way and always tried to stay in touch. So it's awesome to catch up with you. It's awesome to see everything you've got going on now, because your plate's always full. So to find a chance to actually be able to sit down, it's awesome outside of all the socials. So
yeah, the fake relationships on social media, you mean?
Yeah,
actually communicating with people. No, I'm completely honored, for you to even ask me to be on here. I appreciate it. I'm in good company. So, thanks for reaching out, and I'm glad we could finally get together and do it.
Of course, man. Yeah. We'll stay in touch. And again, thanks for coming on, dude.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors, Cerberus Strength. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.